Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Isa Lavahun. Say hi.
Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope I don't spoil things, but you just made my day because I was thanking you. We're in a time zone differential. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon for me. It's about 8:30 for Isa. And I was like, oh my God, thank you for staying so late in the evening to record the show. That means so much to me. And she's in PJ pants. Business on top, PJ pants on the bottom. I don't know if there's a brighter red flashing sign that we were meant to talk on this show than that. Like, yes. So ranting aside, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
So yes, I am what you would call a search marketing strategist, search being SEO. If anyone else doesn't know what that means, search engine optimization. So essentially what I do is I help, if you are a business or a brand and you have a website, I basically work with you to get you kind of ranking as high on the Google search results as possible. They're kind of three. There's loads of different ranking factors in terms of what Google decides to make you go at the top. There's three kind of main key things. One is the sort of technical, to make sure your website's kind of actually working and Google understands what it is and can crawl it. Second is to make sure that you've got relevant content that's kind of aligned to your business or your sort of service or whatever industry you're in. And the third is kind of essentially the sort of promotion, the branding, people kind of thumbs upping your kind of website, people sort of saying that you're an authority and an expert in your website. And the more you have that, the more Google kind of ranks you. And essentially I do more of that part and then also some of the sort of on-page content stuff as well. So that I work on strategy to get that right, to make sure Google kind of notices you. Essentially, that's what I do.
Oh, I love that. I find that fascinating. I've mentioned many times on the show that I'm like borderline tech phobe. If it's intuitive, I can figure it out. I mean, after all, I was the kid that hooked up the VCR back in the 90s. We're going to date ourselves a little bit. You know, I knew how to set it up to pre-record. That was the important thing. But like once we get beyond pushing a few buttons or, a few steps into the menu, I start going, no. Yeah. So I'm always fascinated by people who have that more technical understanding than me. So hopefully you don't mind me picking your brain and being like, educate me, please.
Of course. But I am actually not that techie. I'm actually more of a sort of comms strategist. I've learned a bit of tech, I can build a website, I can understand sort of a little bit of coding, but essentially a lot of things, it's marketing. And this is what people don't realize. It is actually marketing. There is, like I said, you do have to have a bit of tech. So if you kind of come to me and you say, I want my website to rank, I can have a look at your website and saying, yeah, that's not going to happen because technically it's not right. But actually, that is not the main key thing I do. The main key thing I do is to make sure that your branding is right and then make your website famous, essentially. It's kind of like I'm the PR for your website.
That's such a good distinction too. And thank you for correcting me on that, because I'm sure that a lot of people listening had the same assumption that like this is way more technical than I anticipated. Because like the extent of my technicalities, I know how to add like bold tags in the back when I'm editing text.
Not many people can do that. Not many people can do. And I think that's the reason why I wanted to be like, actually, no, I'm not that technical, because for that reason, for people to be getting emailing me and going, okay, can you help me with this coding? And I'll be like, actually, that's not quite what I do. But yeah, I have a little bit about it. I can work my way around it. I can talk to the people who do it. We work well together. But essentially, as I say, my kind of thing is making sure that your branding, your content, your messaging, that you're actually creating stuff that people are searching for. And then, that people are kind of talking about you and pointing to you and linking to you.
I love that. How did you find your way into this world?
So, oh God, this was, again, giving away the stages of that. This is kind of like, God, I've been doing this for over a decade, actually coming on to sort of 12, 13 years. I did a sort of media studies undergrad. And then for about sort of 6-7 years after graduating from, as you guys say, college, we say university. I did bits and bobs. I actually lived in America for a couple of years. I lived in LA for a couple of years. I worked for a startup that was kind of at the time was rivaling Facebook. Didn't end up being the Facebook, but because Facebook took over, but that was like how long ago it was. And then when the credit crunch hit, when the sort of the big recession hit, I moved back to the UK and literally no jobs. And so, at the time, my parents were like, well, why don't you just go back to school and study, what you like doing? So I did that. And that's where I did my sort of post-grad, my master's in marketing. And then after I finished that, I essentially moved back in with my parents, after, because there's no jobs. I had no money. And my parents live in Brighton. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Brighton is like this little seaside town near London. I was living in London for like 10 years. And Brighton is actually the hub of a lot of like digital marketing agencies. A lot of them that just sort of do search marketing. So after I kind of graduated and couldn't really afford to move back to London, I kind of moved in with my parents to kind of pay off my debts and, save money. And then I got a job in my first sort of search SEO kind of agency. And at that time, I didn't know what the hell it was. I was like, what is it? Someone had to explain it to me. But at the time, when I first kind of got into it was the first time that sort of comms, PR, content, influencer kind of engagement, that was when it started kind of happening to sort of SEO. Because before it was quite techy and it was quite, you just have a few people in the website trying to sort of cheat Google, cheat the system, and do some sort of black hat sort of SEO tactics. And Google got smarter and then, kind of SEO agencies realized that they really needed to work together with comms and marketing to make sure that they've actually got some really good stuff to talk about in terms of their website and their website structure to get it ranking. So at that time is kind of when I came on board. And then that's where I learned everything. So I was there for a good 4.5 years and I learned my craft. So everything from content, working with different clients, working with smaller clients, big clients, from Westfield to, Marks and Spencer's to like massive big clients. I kind of worked with them at that time, really learned my craft. And then after about 4.5 years, I sort of thought, I kind of want to do something different. And I really wanted to move back to London. So I'd kind of got myself in a situation where I was like ready to move back. So after 4.5 years, I quit without having a job to go to. So that was the first time I kind of quote unquote went freelance, which was kind of scary. And then at that time I was living with my parents and I was kind of couch surfing with friends in London, kind of doing different types of sort of freelance PR work for different kind of agencies. And then I think about 6-7 months later, I got headhunted to work a job, essentially work for like a big sort of music company. And I think this is the sort of thing about being your own businesswoman or doing your own thing and then being kind of leaning into that job security, a salary, a paycheck, and I have to say that has over the years, that's happened to me a couple of times because one thing about being a freelancer, I think being a business owner is slightly different to being a freelancer because being a freelancer, you're kind of a contractor. So you have to hustle consistently and you're your own PR, you're your own brand. You have to literally be doing the work all the time. And, when I first did it, I definitely wasn't ready. So I did it for 6 months. As soon as I got a job, I was like, yep, I'm doing this. And then I did about sort of 2-3 different jobs. And actually, that was a really good experience for me because those sort of jobs that I did, I worked for various companies because before I'd only had agency experience and working with an agency from a marketing point of view, so different when you're client side. When your clients, it's a lot of slow pace. It's a lot of kind of faffing about. There's loads of stakeholders, sort of management of people, like a sign-off process. Things there's no urgency to anything because obviously all your kind of marketing is sort of in-house. And, you then have to manage agency. So I kind of got it from that point of view of how I would talk to agencies and all the expectations and all that kind of stuff. So I learned a lot during the sort of 3-4 years when I was doing client side. So I did that for a few years and then COVID happened. I did sort of, again, I freelanced between that time, between sort of few jobs. I freelanced for about a year. And again, the first sort of 6 months, it was great. It was fine. I had clients. And then the work kind of slowed down. And I started to panic. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? My next paycheck. And again, got kind of coerced, did kind of, the engagement of getting a full-time job with a salary. And every time I got that, it was more money. So then I was like, oh, I'm never going to make this kind of money freelancing the way that's, what's happening with me now. So I basically just thought, right, okay, I'm going to do this job. I'm going to do that. And every time I do the permanent job, I'm there for about a year and a half. And either there's redundancies or I'm sick of the job or the culture isn't right. Something always happens where I'm like, oh, no, I kind of want to freelance again. Because I always love it. I'm at my happiest when I'm contracting and freelancing. The only sort of downside, I would say, is the kind of financial, kind of insecurity and not knowing like where your next paycheck is coming from. Mm-hmm. So back and forth for a few years. And then COVID happened. And then again, I was literally, one job was gone. And then during COVID, I then got another job, which I didn't want. It's like when you have like a gut feeling where you're thinking, oh my God, I have to take this job. I was literally like, I was interviewing for another job at the time. And the other job was sort of like, yeah, we're going to think about it. It's you against someone else. And I was like, please guys, you've got to hire me because I really don't want this job that's been offered to me. Because I knew that it wasn't right. And I lasted 4 months. And then I got another job about 6 months after that. And then I lasted again 4 months. With the second one, it was more burnout. I actually quite enjoyed that one. But it was literally, I think within that year, there was 35 people in the business. And I think 15 people left that year while I was there.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Like you've said just so much. I have like a full page of notes and I don't even know where to start. First of all, I laughed when you said that last thing about the job, not because I thought it was funny, but like I identified so much with that awkward, like, I don't want to have to say yes to that thing. Please make me an offer. I'm just sitting there going, I know that feeling. And I thought it was like, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning now. We had a near miss. I lived in LA. I moved to LA in 2009. So it looks like I just barely missed you. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. Gosh.
And that was me going back to school in the wake of the Great Recession. I went back to get my master's degree and wound up moving to LA.
That's so cool.
I love how these things connect. Yes.
Definitely. Oh, wow.
The parallels go even deeper, right? I'm going to walk you through this. You talk about falling into SEO because that was the job that you got and that was the area that you were in. When I got my master's degree, it's not entirely marketing. It was kind of like a creative business, creative business hybrid master's degree. I took a lot of screenwriting classes and I took a lot of like employment law and trademark and patent and economics and things like that. And so it was really interesting to me, like as I was doing my studies, I found this field that I really wanted to go into, which was TV development. I've told this story on the show before. And then I got laid off from the Oprah Winfrey Network a couple years into that journey, and I couldn't find a job. And I had to move in with friends on their couch. And in a moment of desperation, I picked up a book called The Well-Fed Writer and thought, I could do that. He talked about copywriting, that side of marketing. I know you're probably familiar with that as an SEO specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a big part of I don't do it, but I work with copywriters a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so all of that happened. And then it goes even deeper, right? Because I move in with my friend on their couch. I'm trying to build a business freelancing, but I don't know what I don't know about copywriting and about the business building aspect of freelancing. So the first attempt at freelancing was a miserable, abject failure. And I went searching for a job and I got a junior in-house role in the San Francisco area. And I kept doing the same thing where I would get a job and I would try to freelance and I would get a job and I would try to freelance. Yeah. And the point that I'm trying to make in all of this for the listeners here is your path is your own and there's no shame in that game. Like, listen to the two of us who have built it to where we feel like we want to share this message with the world, have an impact on people, right? We're creating this show.
For sure.
And I have lived with my parents. I have lived on my best friend's couch with 3 adults, 3 cats, and a baby in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. That was some rough living, right? And I have so much love for them putting up with me for that long. Right. But none of us gets anywhere without help. You don't have to figure it out the first time or even the first few times. As long as you keep going, you got this.
Definitely. And you always learn from, and I wasn't meant to freelance the first time. I did it for the second time for a reason. I mean, the second time I did it, I traveled 8 times that year. And it was literally, I was working while I was, traveling. And I kind of thought, every time I freelanced, my mental health was at its best. Even though I wasn't making much money, my mental health was at its best. And like the last time I had a job where I had sort of the fine, and to be fair, I don't really want to, the last job I had, it's not really their fault I had burnout. I think it was just the last straw of all through the years of everything that I just thought, I can't do this anymore. And I'm talking about working on PowerPoint presentations till 4 a.m. A client meeting. I hadn't seen my sister. My sister lives in America. She'd come with her family to visit us so I went to sort of stay with my parents. She came with her family to visit us. I'd never met her husband, never met her little boy. And I remember literally sitting in front of my computer doing working on a presentation. And my sister, she was only there for 2 days because she was stopping to go somewhere else. She was only doing like a pit stop in London, wanting to spend time with us. And I literally couldn't spend time with her. I was like in front of my computer just going, I need to do this presentation. And I think it's that kind of burnout culture where I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I literally can't do this anymore because life's too short. That's number one. And the second thing is, if God forbid something happened to me tomorrow, if I got run over by a bus tomorrow, this company would replace me.
Yes.
Literally would replace me.
So it's not that nobody cares, right? Your coworkers care and the bosses care and they love you as a person. And because the business has the need to have somebody in that role, they're going to have a moment where everybody misses you very deeply and profoundly, and then they put up a job listing. That's just how it goes.
So like I'm busting a gut, missing time with my family because of a PowerPoint presentation that I'm not going to remember in a year's time, Right. Yeah. So that was literally, it was like the last straw for me. I was like, right, I can't do this anymore. I'd say the other side of it is, I've been doing it a long time. And as you do it, you do become more senior. So, kind of in the sort of agency structure here, you have like an account exec, account manager, account director. And I'd gone up to sort of head of department, senior account director, kind of that level, right? And at that level, I'm not doing any of the things that I've been promoted to do because I was good at it. I'm not doing all the stuff that actually I'm good at. The strategy stuff, the creative stuff, the campaign outreach stuff, the kind of project sort of managing stuff. You don't do any of that. You're doing commercials and budgets and new business and cost-effective stuff, and again, as it should be. I'm not sort of saying that you're getting paid more and you should take on more of the responsibility. I completely understand that. I'm not but that's not what I'm good at. No. That's not I'm there.
And that's interesting because it ties to what I've been pivoting to for the last several months, which is, when I started Permission to Kick Ass, I was very solidly in the copywriter field. And I was very passionate about helping people from that freelancer to business owner journey, exactly like you talked about, because yes, I love that you brought up the fact that it was money versus mental health. I feel like we're caught in that perpetual battle. And there are a lot of coaches out there that'll tell you that freelancing is easy and you set your rules and you set your rates and you get your own clients and you go, but you're really signing on for the work of like 5 people. And you have to have the gumption, the stones to get out there and say, this is what I think my work is worth. Here are all the facts that I've got to support that. Do you want to work together? I'd love to work together, and just do that enough times to where you have a solid business. But like lately I watched, my mom's big into YouTube compilations, and I'm visiting the farm down in Texas.
Oh, amazing.
Oh yeah, I love getting to spend time with them. That's the whole point for me, is to be able to travel,
Same.
to visit people, to have
Same.
good food, to spend time with family.
Same.
And we're watching this YouTube compilation on that show. Crap, what is it called? It's the one about the hidden bosses. You know, where the CEO comes down from the company into one of the branches.
I know which one you mean. I don't know. I can't remember the name, but I know which one you mean. Yeah.
I think it's Undercover Boss. There we go. And it's always with a horrible wig. How do these people not know? Like it's just an obvious horrible wig. Whatever. I'm digressing. So a lot of these bosses in this compilation dealt with somebody that we would argue is on a power trip. Somebody that's like, I'm going to give you this once and you better nail it. And it's like, I have high standards and you better please me. And what made me really happy was at the end of these, the CEOs coming to the conclusion that they had failed their employee, not that they'd hired an asshole, that, you know, somehow this person got put into a leadership position, into a manager position, and didn't have the training or the skills or the ability to communicate in the way that a manager needs to. And so I find that interesting that corporate culture has always been about like identify the best person at this copywriting thing and then make them into a manager and take them entirely out of their skill set. Why don't we do that?
Make any sense. And like, look, for some people, the transition is smooth and it works completely and utterly. Or for some people, they go, you know what? It's more money. I want more money, and that's that. And there's nothing. There's no judgment and for how anyone chooses their path. It just wasn't for me, and I found myself moving farther and further away from the stuff that I was good at and the stuff that I was interested in and the stuff that kind of could really show my strengths. And I just thought, I don't want to do I don't really care about like logistics and, you know, procurement and, you know, budgets and upselling to this client when we're not, you know, like all that kind of stuff. To me, it's like, I want to do a good job. I want to get results. I want to teach people what I know in terms of strategy and everything like that, like all my experience. I kind of want to do the mentorship. The other thing is I was not a very good sort of, people direct reporting to me.
Yeah.
I won't say I'm too nice, but I'm just,
that's a whole skill set that people have to learn.
I don't like to not be liked. And I know it's really sad, but like my sort of quote unquote trauma response is I'm people pleaser. Do you know what I mean? So I think me being a kind of manager and managing people and having to deal, like there was one job that I had where I managed a team of 12. And like, it's not, I don't care for it. I don't care for it. It's extra stress. You know, me having to like manage myself, manage my workload, and then 10 other people with their own problems as well. It's not just managing their work. It's managing whatever stuff that they're going through. And I'm kind of an empathetic person. So instead I look at stuff from a human point of view, but then the person at the top is like, well, you're not doing your job because you're not, you know, you're not being hard enough, or you're not, you know, you're not disciplining them, or you're not all this kind of, it just wasn't for me. It didn't fit. And it just got to the point where I had butterflies in my stomach. When I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be sick, like I'd feel physically sick of going to work. And then I think there was one day when I worked one of the jobs. It was the time during COVID with the job where I was like, oh, please don't make me accept this job. It was that job. I remember sitting in front of my computer and I didn't drink a sip of water, let alone eat, for about 9 hours when I was just sat in front of my computer. That's how stressed I was.
How did you not pass out? I mean,
when I'm in that zone, because the thing, I'm a grafter. I like hard work. I'm happy to pull a one-nighter on things that need to be doing. You know, I'm happy to kind of get stuck in. That's kind of my sort of, you know, my default. I don't mind doing that, but it's not sustainable to do that.
It's not sustainable. Like, and I'm ADHD and I have forgotten to eat for 12 hours, sometimes even up to 24 hours at a time, but I'm a beverage goblin. I'm the one that's got 3 drinks next to me at all times. So I can't fathom like going a day without drinking. And that's not meant as a judgment. That's just like, wow, putting to that level of stress and like,
health. Yeah, it's the stress. it wasn't anything. It was just literally stress. And I think at that point I was like, yeah, and I'm done. So I think when that happened, when that final sort of breakdown, final straw, when I made the decision to go freelance, it was like, there is no choice. I will not ever, ever go back to working for a business full time. Obviously, I suppose you say never, but I can't see it. I can't see it. So for me, it was either. Like, it can't fail. I can't go back. This has to work. Like what I'm doing right now, it has to work. I've got no choice for this to work. And that mindset actually is a good one, because when I was back and forth and I was freelance, get a job, because I knew that I could get a job, quote unquote. I think it was like the sort of thing that you have to fall back on. So maybe there's a little part of you that doesn't take it as seriously, or you don't kind of see it sort of survival of the fittest. You kind of just think, oh yeah, I'll do a bit of freelancing. If it doesn't work, I'll just get a job. Like now it's like, I don't have a choice. This has to work. So that is essentially where I'm at now, where I've been doing it for just over a year. Actually, not quite. It's a year. I started sort of June last year, just over a year.
Congrats. Yeah. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Side note, I think we got to celebrate the wins where we get them. I don't care how big or how small it is. If it's, I've been feeling depressed for the last 6 months and today I got up and took a shower. Yay me. Yes. Celebrate. I have been in this freelancing game for a year now, and this time I am making it work for me and I am happy with what I'm doing. Hell yeah. Celebrate. I got a book coming out and I literally scheduled it for my birthday, because I know me and my tendency to catastrophize and like get anxious over shit that I can't control. And so there's a part of me that's like, I worked really hard on this book, and if it doesn't become bestseller instantly, like overnight, and I am not like catapulted into
itself,
I'm a failure. So I'm like, you know what? We're releasing it during my birthday, and that way it's just going to be a party because, hey, I'm 40. I released a fucking book, and that was an accomplishment in and of itself. Yay, let's go. So there's my little celebration rant.
No, for sure. You're so right. We always like moving on to the next. But yeah, we definitely have to celebrate everything. So yeah, woohoo, 1 year.
Hell yeah. Well, and look, okay. So I'm going back through my notes again. I've got so many good things. I loved the thing that you said about this thing that I'm focusing on. I'm putting all of my energy into this slide deck that is preventing me from hanging out with my family. And I'm not even going to remember this in a year. That I had an almost word for word similar revelation that helps me make decisions to this day, especially when it comes to what I'm willing to fight, so to speak. I don't really fight with clients, but I'm willing to fight for, what I'm willing to get stressed for. It always comes down to, am I going to remember this in 5 years? Am I even going to remember this in 5 months? Most of the time not. So I don't get upset in traffic when somebody cuts me off. I knew somebody was going to cut me off. What is the point of getting upset about this? Just leave extra space. And here's my other trick. Assume that everybody that is driving aggressively in traffic really has to poop, like explosive. I need to get to a toilet kind of poop. That makes you laugh at exactly like that. I go, yeah, okay. Right. He cut me off because he really needs to get to the bathroom. Peace be with you, buddy. I hope you get there.
No, totally. Yeah, it is literally, don't sweat the small stuff, for sure.
And this is interesting because you also mentioned the difference between freelancing and being a business owner. And I love dissecting that, because you're right that there is some sort of mindset shift that has to happen between the two of them. And I've always been curious about where exactly that line is. It seems to be kind of a sliding scale depending on who you're talking to. But I think it really revolves around learning to let go of the trading time for money thing and creating becoming an offer owner, having a couple of revenue streams that bring income into your business versus just going out and looking for clients that you can service. Not that one is better than the other, of course. Like I know so many great freelancers who have made a living out of it, but at the end of the day, you also have to work with people, and maybe you just want to create products and sell them. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, to be fair, I've started to think about that now. Nice. I think it's I had to do the job thing. I had to do the working for agency, then working client side. I had to work my way up so I could learn different aspects of business, what the owner of a business needs versus what the marketing team of a business need, and kind of knowing how I fit in and knowing what training and skill set people need. So like all of that I've kind of learned as I've gone along. And then now I'm kind of fully in the craft of selling myself as a business and putting myself out there and networking and being at the right place at the right time, putting myself forward for different things and really kind of working, using my business as, myself as sort of my business marketing tool. It's going to take me a minute to get that because I kind of want to get to the stage, because when you're freelancing, I had a quiet 3 months, beginning of the year, 3-4 months, where I again started to kind of feel a bit nervous and go, oh my God, what's going on? What's happening? There was literally nothing happening. Nothing happening. I was like, what's going on? And part of me, I kind of dealt with it where part of me, I was like, right, okay, it's going to come, work's going to come in. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. And during that time, I would write content, I write blog posts, I do sort of conferences where I'd kind of do talks. I taught at universities. I put myself forward for podcasts. Yes.
I
did all the kind of things in my free time that would still add towards sort of marketing the business. Without kind of being sitting around and being sort of feeling sorry for myself and kind of going, oh my God, there's no work. I was like kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And then, then work started coming again. So I think I want to get to a point where the work is continuous. I've got enough clients where one doesn't need me anymore, another one pops up. One doesn't need me anymore, another one pops up. When I've got that flow, then it's thinking about, look, because you can't, in terms of freelancing, I am literally using my brain, my body, my skill, everything.
Yeah, you are the product.
I am the product, exactly. And to some extent, I can do this for a few years, but to some extent, that's also not sustainable, because if I don't work, if God forbid I'm sick or anything like that, then the money stops. So I know that's not sustainable, but it's kind of what I want to do for the, next couple of years at least, to kind of figure out the different types of products I could create, all that kind of stuff. But it is part of the plan. And a huge part of what I really want to do is sort of the training. So I've had a couple of training sort of workshops and stuff that I'm kind of doing, which is like training people how to do search strategy, working with PR agencies to kind of talk about SEO, because it's a huge part of what they should be doing that they're not doing.
Yes.
Working with, higher education, working with students and stuff who want to get into sort of digital marketing and need to understand the new types of digital marketing out there. And just kind of thinking about innovation, like thinking about new sort of products and stuff, like working TikTok and working with social media platforms and thinking about how you work with AI, like all that sort of stuff is kind of stuff that I'm thinking about. But at this point in time, I'm in hustle mode where I'm, because I've only been doing it for just over a year, as in, obviously I've done it back and forth, but this is the last sort of 13 months has been when I've sort of made my decision that this is going to be me.
This is the one. And there's a special kind of, I remember that you mentioned that earlier, and that was something that I wrote down to circle back to. So I'm glad that you mentioned it again, because there is a special kind of magic that only pops up when either your back is against the wall through circumstances that you can't control. That happens to all of us. Or when you've gone, enough. This is my line in the sands. I am making this work. Come hell or high water. This is the thing. Like, I am making my stand. There's something that shifts in your brain when you've got to make it work. And suddenly little things that would ordinarily stop us, like, well, but I'm kind of afraid to put that out there because what would people think of me? I don't care what people think of me. I got to make money. Literally. Because,
there is a little bit of, and I think it's happens more for women than it does for men. There is the sort of imposter syndrome that creeps in. You think, oh my God, I don't know. And it's like, girl, you've been doing this for like 12, 13 years. You know your shit. You actually know what you're talking about.
Well, and the funny thing about imposter syndrome is I think it's really the result of a lack of perspective, right? Because we're in between our own ears. We're living with this shit 24/7. So we're convinced that there's nothing really special about what we do because I know this stuff inside out. It's not nearly as special as that person over there or that person that has really cool ideas. And we don't do the 360. We don't turn around and look behind us at all the people in a line, behind us a mile long going, but Isa has what I want. This is a genius, and I want to do what she's doing. Like for everybody that you're chasing that you feel like you'll never catch up to, you are that person for somebody else, and you're exactly where you need to be. And it's hard to hear, and that's hard to believe when you're stuck in the thick of it, when the money is not coming in. But I love what you said about continuing to push, continuing to be consistent. I've had people, I used to be a blog writer back in the day. And I've actually had blogs in some form since 2002, since, before it was cool to play my hipster card. And I've had people go, well, if I wanted to start blog writing, what words of advice would you have for me? And I said, consistency is the name of the game. You're not going to hear anything for a while. It doesn't mean nobody's watching. It doesn't mean nobody's being impacted. It doesn't mean that nobody's interested. But how often, if you can put yourself in a stranger's shoes, how often do you read something, listen to a podcast, have that spark and go, oh my God, that was the thing I needed to hear today, and then go on about your day and say nothing to the person that created it, right? There are people out there all the time that if you are creating materials, like Isa and I are sitting here creating this show, there are people out there that are listening that aren't saying anything, but they're taking that message out into the world and they're doing stuff with it. So I love imagining that all of this work, even during slow times that I'm putting in, is turning the universal gears, and stuff is just working in the background that I can't see, but it's coming.
No, but it's really, really true. I actually got one of my training gigs from I'm not saying that's definitely how it happened, but I did a blog post on my blog, and I was talking about PR metrics, and this is all the stuff you should do, put it out on LinkedIn, and just thought, let me just do some stuff, put myself out there. And then I had someone like it. And then that person then connected to me on LinkedIn. Then they emailed me like, I would like to do some training. Then we had a phone call, and then that turned out to be someone that was a client, and it's basically me just putting out a blog post that I didn't think would do anything, so it's literally getting yourself out there to as much as possible you can do within your own kind of power, whatever. There's things that you don't have control over, right? But the things that you do have control over, it is literally just like the whole thing you said, consistency. You're so right. And I think, to be honest, where before, when I didn't have the mindset of this is it, I don't have a choice, I probably would kind of just go, oh, okay, let me just look for a job. And now I'm like, no, this has to work. And I think the downtime, even when I'm a bit anxious or a bit like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm like, right, what can you do today? What are you going to do today? What's the thing that you're like, what are you going to write about? Who are you going to go out to? Who are you going to email?
Yes. What can I do?
What can I do? Absolutely. And it does feel like it's not doing anything. But eventually, what I've learned from this cycle is that everything that you do does end up contributing towards the next part of whatever it is you're doing that you're setting up by yourself. So that consistency is absolutely key. That's like the number one advice I would give to anybody who's doing anything. Consistency is key.
Say what you want. I know that you're a strategist, right? But there's a blend between answering the SEO questions that everybody's asking and speaking to something that you feel inspired to speak to today, even if it doesn't feel like it makes a lick of sense in what you're doing, right? Because that's the human side of you that you get to show, because none of us are all business all the time. I guess there are some people that are all business all the time, but most of us have lives, and we are real three-dimensional human beings that have lives and souls and interests and quirks and all kinds of stuff. And the people who are for you are going to be for you. And the people that are repelled by it, cool, find somebody else. That's fine. You'll like other people. Yeah. And your story brought to mind an interesting thing that just recently happened. And to tell this well, I have to go back to 2021, when I was in the middle of grieving from an unexpected breakup, adjusting to life on the road as a digital nomad, in the first stage of transition away from copywriting into figuring out what my business consultancy looks like. And I've got a lot of clarity, but I recorded a podcast back then where my mentor, Kevin Rogers, wanted to talk about making big leaps. And I said something in the show. I didn't even remember saying it, but I said something about what I said to you earlier, which is your timing is your own. You don't have to move faster or slower than you're moving. You're exactly where you need to be. And I said that on the show, and that resonated with someone named Matt. Hi, shout out to Matt. I know you're listening. Say hi to me when you hear this. I had no idea that Matt existed at that point in time. That message hit him, and he wrote a blog post about it. So like fast forward a few years later, actually, this was just a couple months ago, when I announced that I was putting out the book on my birthday, I said, I have a goal to be on 40 shows or in 40 publications or something by the time I turn 40, help me get the word out. And he reached out to me and he said, hey, I've been a longtime fan. And in case this seems even remotely creepy, like here's a link to a blog post I wrote about you back in the day because I just love your work so much.
Wow.
Right. And so it came full circle that this thing I put out years ago had mattered so much to somebody and impacted them in a way that when I put the word out and I needed help with something, he goes, let me have you on my show. I talk to financial advisors, but I think that there's a way that we could talk about creativity, leadership, following your own gut. That's really going to resonate with these people. And I was like, put me on the financial advisor show. I know nothing, but it will be entertaining.
For sure. No, for sure. Like this is the thing. It does. And I mean, to touch on what you just said, I do think the thing about being a freelancer, we were saying, oh, some people are business people, but I do think it's so important to be likable. Mm-hmm. Like I could be really good at my job, but be a complete nightmare to work with. I mean, look, listen, I'm not going to be anyone's favorite. I'm not saying everyone that I've worked with loves me, but I try my very best to be like, you know, firm but fair with people I've managed. But so like for an example, there was someone in my team with one of the jobs that I hired her. I managed her. We got on really well. She's actually more of the sort of tech SEO, and I'm like more content. And so we work so well together. We really work well together. And she was there for about a year, and not even a year, probably 6-7 months. And she then got headhunted to kind of be a sort of co-agency owner. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward, you know, a year and a half, 2 years later, she's now the owner of her own agency. And then she talked about hiring me for some of her clients who would want to do sort of the comm PR stuff. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing about going for now, if I was a bitch of a manager and a nightmare to work with, that opportunity wouldn't happen. Yeah. And you know, with another client, I worked with them. Then I got an email from someone else who said, oh, this person recommended you. They said they worked with you and they said that you're really cool. So like being someone that works well and does a good job and is likable or can get on, like can literally get on with, it's super, super important because I think if you're not, then freelance life probably isn't for you.
And it's okay. Like the world needs employees. And if you don't feel comfortable being a freelancer or a business owner, it's totally okay. There's no judgment or shade on this show for being where you're at. And if you want to be an employee for a season because you need that stability, that's all welcome and permission to kick ass land. Totally. But I love what you said about working with her and not being somebody that's difficult to work with. Right? I say never burn bridges. And I always tell my coaching students, beware of the toes you step on because they could connect to the ass that you have to kiss tomorrow. Like the toes you step on today are connected to the ass you might have to kiss tomorrow. I always leave that door open and create good working relationships. And we're not necessarily talking about like being someone's best friend. I think it's critical when you're working with people to be friendly and not necessarily be friends. But like all of these things are working. And if you had gotten, I love this story. It's so great. If you had gotten bitter, if you had felt upset and taken it to heart that she was leaving to do what was best for her and said something out of emotion, then these opportunities that came up later when she thought of you and remembered you with fondness wouldn't have happened. And I know that's kind of like a tangent here as we're heading toward the end of the show, but I just love that that's a perfect demonstration of how I interpret this whole idea of it's not personal, it's business. She made a decision that was right for her. And it really sucks for me because I'm losing somebody that was great to work with, that did a good job for me, that made my life a whole lot easier. But I can't blame her for making that choice. I'm going to wish her well. And I'm gonna throw some sad eyes at her and tell her how much I miss her. But I'm gonna let her go. Look at her. She came back like a boomerang and brought me in to talk to other people.
Hey, it's literally like it is like you said, careful of the people that you meet on the way up, because they'll be the same people you meet on the way down. Because we all go up and down in life. That's just life.
Yep.
So I totally agree with that.
That was the perfect note to end it on. I mean, thank you so much. We talked about so much in such a short period of time, but I feel like this is such a good one for people to hear. So tell us more about your business, where we can learn about you and how to work with you.
Yes. So as I said, I'm a search strategist. I do sort of consultancy. I do sort of campaign activation, work with clients in-house, agency side. I also do training. So if you kind of want to know about SEO and you don't have a clue about it and you kind of wanted to start somewhere, I do lots of that as well. I'm on DigiPR Comms, which I think you're going to share at some point.
Yes. I will have it in the show notes so that they can click on it. So yeah,
my website that's got all the information about what I do. I'm also on Twitter, ISA Labs. So if you kind of wanted to say hi, then please do. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So all the information about everything that I do is all on there.
Awesome. So, yes. We're getting connected after the show because you and I
are
I need more of this energy. And thank you for staying on again so late and sharing your brilliance with us. I appreciate you. Hope you get to rest tonight. And we're going to have to do another.
Of course. Yeah, no, for sure. 1 year later.
1 year later. Yeah, just the anniversary show. Just keep us posted on how you're doing and what you've learned.
I need to know how everything's happened with your best of luck with your book launch. I'm so good. I'm going to look out for that. I'm so going to look out for that.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.